Welcome, everyone, to DEI After 5, the show that focuses on topics across diversity, equity, and inclusion with some of the brightest minds in the industry. Here's your hostess, inclusive culture curator and coach, Sacha Thompson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of DEI After 5. Okay, so again, if you have followed us, if you know me, all the things this season have really been about kind of what's happening in the DEI space. And one of the things that I have really been thinking about and speaking more about has been, how do we actualize DEI, right? The question of what happens if DEI goes away? Well, the work will continue to happen, but it will only continue to happen if it is an embedded part of the organization. It's not an add-on. It's not a nice to have. It is a part of how you do business. And so today we're going to talk to an executive who actually focuses on this within her organization. And so my guest is Karishma Patel-Buford. Just want to make sure I got that. Who is an executive at Spring Health. And so Karishma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sacha. So excited to be here.
I am really excited to have this conversation because you all are doing some amazing things. So for folks who may not know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this?
Yeah, absolutely. So Karishma Patel-Buford, I'm the Chief People Officer at Spring Health. Had quite a few twists and turns in my career. I actually started off as a clinical psychologist by education, moved into the business world, into consulting at Korn Ferry, where I learned the science of leadership, and then progressively different companies, 100,000 person companies down to startup. Spent a few different stints at those companies, and then really full circle coming back to Spring Health as a Chief People Officer, and the intersection of where I started my career as a clinical psychologist, recognizing that what we do is a global comprehensive solution for mental health benefits for employers and payers. So it's been an exciting journey and really what feels like a full circle journey.
Yeah. And, mental health has been one of those areas over the last, I would say 2 years where organizations are really putting emphasis on what that looks like, because in this post-pandemic workplace, that was one of the things that employees were prioritizing, right? Like, I'm not going to let this place drive me down. So, right, what do I need to do for me in order to maintain healthy mental health, wellness, lifestyle, all of those things kind of tied together. And so talk to me a little bit about how you all are seeing organizations really focusing on this space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the pandemic changed everything, and really 2020 is what created this paradigm shift in terms of the role of employers in particular. So you have a global health pandemic, you have political divisiveness, you have racial injustice, you have going home, and the boundaries between work and life are completely blurred. And then you have social isolation, which social support is actually the resilience factor against depression and other mental health challenges. And so we experienced 10 years of psychologically impactful experience in one. And so all of a sudden, employers recognize in a brand new way that we can never go back to is the employee value proposition has to change in supporting the whole person. And so once that shift happened, our growth at Spring Health accelerated because of this, and employers recognizing that mental health benefits and helping people become their best selves and do their best work has huge ROI at work, and it's the right thing to do. And so that's really what shifted the mindset and the value proposition. And many candidates now in the market won't join a company unless the employer is willing to invest in mental health benefits.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because, right when we were talking and prepping for this, I was saying how that was just a topic earlier today and in conversation that I was having. And part of that is we have a younger generation that's coming in with the high expectation that this is a given.
Yes.
This is not a nice to have, right? They are so much more attuned to their mental health, the environments that they're a part of. They are also much more likely to check out of a place, right? Hey, this is not an environment that is healthy for me. I'm not, it's not good for my mental health and capabilities. And so I'm going to leave, right? Whereas I think older generations were like, suck it up and, go through the fire. We all had to go through the fire. No, you chose to go through the fire and you didn't have to do that.
Yes.
And so what I'm noticing is when it comes to benefits, when it comes to these work environments, there's a very high expectation. And you pointed to it earlier where the employee is now in the driver's seat.
Yes.
No longer the employer. Right. So talk to me a bit about, what does that look like for organizations now? Because there's one thing to say, oh, we have all these benefits and they check all the boxes. Mm-hmm. But part of, our conversation today is about embedding this. Like, how do you embody a wellness environment? How do you embody all of this as a part of who you are as an organization? And what does that look like? So talk to me about, what you're seeing, or even some of the things that you all are doing to make sure that it's not just a checkbox activity.
Yes. Yeah. So today, you're exactly right, Sacha, around employee expectations have shifted quite a bit. The values aren't around loyalty at any cost, right? In a remote world now, you don't have to live in the same place that your company is based. And so you can work anywhere. And that creates a higher expectation for employers to create a culture where people can thrive. So that's really what I think now, as we think about generations more recently in the workforce, people want to come to a place where they can thrive, where they can come in, do their best work, have a sense of mastery and autonomy and growth, and feel inspired, empowered, and energized. And in fact, that is our framework for how we measure our culture on those three domains. Do people feel consistently inspired? Do they have role models in the company? Do they believe in the vision and the future of the company? Do they feel empowered to do their best work, to have the autonomy to make decisions, to have the resources and tools to be able to be successful? And then are they energized? And that's where the mental health piece comes in, right? Are they energized by the people around them? Is it a collaborative environment where people have each other's backs? Right? Do they have a friend at work? Sometimes the most driving factor in engagement is, do I have a best friend at work? So are they in an environment where they're energized by the work and the people? And so everything that we've done over the last 2 years at Spring Health has been around this framework of creating a culture of thriving. And so we have very specific questions that are in our engagement surveys that are tied to those three domains. And we analyze it deeply by department, at the manager level, to understand what are our strengths as a company, at a team, department, and manager level, and then what are the opportunities, and then creating action plans just to bring it to life, to your point of embedding and actualizing it. We don't let the data sit there. Often companies have one engagement survey a year, and it takes a year just to get through the data and create an action plan. And by the time you have that, it's time for the next survey.
Yeah.
So we keep it simpler, much more focused, and we are all about rapid integration of data and taking action on what we learn.
I love that, because what happens when you have that year-long process and then the next thing you know, there's another survey coming out, is people in the organization lose trust, right? 100%. You're not going to do anything with the data anyway. Yes. Why are you wasting our time? And so you start to lose the confidence that the organization even cares. So I appreciate that you all do it, turn around very quickly. I can't even talk today. Actually getting the work done that needs to get done versus just sitting on that data, because that's a critical part of this.
Exactly.
So one of the things, as I was writing down, inspire, empower, energized, is there's also this push right now for us to get back to normal, right? To get back to this pre-pandemic workplace where there was loyalty, and not to disparage any generation.
Yes.
However, comma, there are, right, some characteristics of some generations that feel like they're losing something because there's no loyalty. There's no, 20 years in the same organization anymore. And there's this push to get back into the office, push to anything that we've experienced over the last 5 years, to that was just a blip, right? We're going to ignore that. We're going to get back to where we were before the blip, for anybody that watches Marvel movies.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering what the impact is on mental health when you have an organization that is so focused on getting back to normal that they are ignoring kind of the needs and desires in actually I would say the needs, because it's not even wants at this point. These are the needs of the employees. So what happens there when that organization just disregards the employee?
Yeah. I think it's quite Darwinian, quite frankly, is that you have to adapt with the times. We're in a new world. Something happened to us as humans that was game changing, right? In terms of the experience we've had over the last 5 years. So this is the new normal. And I think trying to bring it back to what it was in the past is just not adapting for survival and growth. And so that's what I mean about the Darwinian. Now, I see little value on anything when it's a one size fits all approach, right? Everybody must come back, or everybody needs to be in the office 3 days a week. There are, we're a hybrid workforce at Spring Health. About 30%, our headquarters is in New York City. About 30% are located in the tri-state area. And then the rest are across the country and some across the globe. Now, there are going to be certain very critical strategic roles that need to be in the office given at that point in our business strategy. Now, that's a very surgical, intentional approach on where we can find the value of frequent and investing in more on-site and together collaboration, because there is something very special and powerful about having that in-person time, but it's not a one size fits all. It doesn't make sense from an investment standpoint, even financially, nor does it make sense from an employee value proposition standpoint. If you want to have, cast the widest net in terms of talent and being able to attract diverse talent, you can't limit yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so by definition, the people that need to come into the office need to live near the office. So it's a reasonable experience. And so you limit yourself from a talent perspective, from a diversity perspective. And so I truly don't believe in one size fits all. I think you have to be much more intentional about talent strategy versus making, sweeping guidelines like that.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to who's in the driver's seat, because, for so many organizations 3 years ago, it was, work from anywhere, right? You can work from anywhere because they were so focused on, or so they said, mental health and, making sure that people had what they needed in order to create an environment that was beneficial to them. Right. And so now it's like, okay, forget that. We need you back in the office, makes sense or not. Right. And so again, with employees being in the driver's seat, you're starting to see folks opting out. You're starting to see folks deciding, you know what, I love this lifestyle that I've created for myself and my family. I'm finding peace. I'm not waking up stressed. I'm not, doing all these other things that are impacting my body mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. In order to keep the lights on. I can keep my lights on in other ways that feed me. Like I always talk about, like, how are you filling your cup, right? Doing things that appreciate you as a human and not just see you as a cog in a wheel. And I think part of that is understanding your value. And organizations understanding the value of their employees. And I want to take that to, some of the things that you all have done, because You all have not just spoken about mental health or, use that as a service that you not outsource, that you offer to your clients, but you all have been very intentional and you've spoken about that, about what you all are doing. So talk to us about the GEM platform. Like, what is that? How are you utilizing that? And what benefits are you seeing? I know that was a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's okay. So taking a step back on DEI, right? Because that's the connection for GEM. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging has been a lens that we've integrated across our entire employee life cycle. So one way that we've done it is in the hiring, recruiting process. And so GEM is a platform that actually sources underrepresented talent that can be a good match for the role. And so that they have specifically invested and differentiated themselves as a platform for attracting talent, and for talent to create profiles there for us to easily connect without any barriers, right? To be able to connect with underrepresented talent and create more opportunity. So that's just one way that we've embedded DEI. And I love that you're using the word embedded, because that is it. Many companies treat DEI as this separate entity, and we've done exactly the opposite. But it doesn't work, right? It's this extra thing. It's not integrated into your day-to-day when you think about it from an employee experience and talent management. And so we've worked very hard to embed that DEI lens and strategy into every part of what we call moments that matter in the employee life cycle. So GEM is just one example of that.
I love it. And then you also talked, when we were speaking, talked about kind of the allyship training.
Yes.
I was gonna say, folks that know me, have listened to me. Like, I am not a fan of the word allyship, but I understand I'm gonna step back, because it's not that I'm not a fan of allyship. It's a verb, right? It's not a noun. And so when I hear allyship training, that tells me, okay, this is about the actions that need to take place versus something that I have appointed myself because I want to feel like I am good and I am not causing harm to anyone, though you may be causing harm to people, right? So that's the noun piece of it. And so talk to us about like this allyship training, and what do you actually empower, because I'm using the words that y'all are using, right? Empower employees to truly show up as actionable allies.
Absolutely. And I think what you're hitting on is the concept that training is the beginning, not the end.
Yes.
Sometimes people treat training as check that box, done. I'm an ally. I'm ready to go. No, it's the beginning. And so much of the training, we did a specific training that was focused on looking in the mirror and understanding and becoming more aware of how did you come up with your belief system and your cognitive schemas around difference and diversity, and how does that impact you every day when you're thinking about making decisions, and how do biases inform what direction you take. Now, bias, if you have a brain, you have biases, period.
Period.
It's what you do with the bias that
Yes.
is actually the part that's the make or break, right? And so being aware. And so our allyship training was mostly about building that awareness, looking in the mirror, understanding what it's like to be, coming from a place of empathy versus sympathy, right? Having an immersion experience of putting yourself in that person's shoes, and really understanding what could their experience be like? How could it be different from yours? And I was talking to our director of DEI, Michelle Rojas, who's phenomenal. And she and I were just processing so much of what's happened in the world over the last year. And one of the conclusions that came out of our processing together is so much of the divisiveness that's coming out today, whether it's social or political or et cetera, is this idea that I'm right and you're wrong. That there's only one truth, And so much of DEI is the idea that there are multiple truths.
Yes.
Multiple things can be true at the same time, but if there is a need to be right, and in order for me to be right, you have to be wrong, then we're not going to progress when it
Yes.
comes to not just the D, but the EI and the B. And so much of our allyship training is in this, like, here's the checklist on how to become an ally. And once you finish that checklist, which is what you're hitting on, that transactional piece, you're an ally. That's not what it's about. Exactly.
Right.
I'm done. It's just the beginning. And I'm biased here as a psychologist, but I think everything starts with awareness and looking in the mirror. That's the good, bad, and ugly of the truth of looking in the mirror. There are things that, there are world views and schemas that were created as a result of our upbringing. And our upbringing, much of it was not by like our control, right? You're not deciding who your parents are. You're not deciding who your attachments are around your so it's recognizing how did you grow up in terms of how that shaped your worldview. So that's very much the core of where we launched our first allyship training last year. And now we're thinking about, okay, where are we now in the journey? What do we need to do next?
I love that. I always talk about, unpacking yourself first before you even do this work and unpacking your identity. Because so many people don't do that. Like they haven't done that. And as you said, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly of putting a mirror up to yourself and realizing, okay, there may have been some things that have influenced me in a negative way that I'm not seeing as negative until I'm older in life. And then it starts you to question, did I have bad parents? No. And people start to spiral into that. And you know what? I think that's part of this. I don't even want to deal with it because I don't want to face those things. But at the same time, I think there's beauty in doing this work and having sessions like that allow you to say, yes, I may not have come up in the most diverse space, but I choose to move forward in this particular way, right? Versus kind of hunkering down into like, this is how it's always been. And you can look at it from a different perspective and see something very different.
Exactly. And it's expensive,
right?
It's safer to avoid it because you'd be breaking into, and there's a vulnerability that's involved. But that's why we have defense mechanisms, right? Because they are defense mechanisms. And it is when you say I am right and you're wrong, it's out of fear. At the end of the day, that's a fear-based reaction. And so you have to break through the fear, which requires quite a bit of vulnerability to do that.
Oh, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Everything that's happening.
Yes.
It's all based in fear. And it's curated fear. And that's the part that is just annoying to me because I'm like, you're creating this idea of them versus us and monsters and all of that. And in reality, that's not what it is at all.
Right.
The visual that came to my mind is like when you're a kid and you see a shadow and you're like, oh, it's a monster or, something. It's very similar to that where it's like you've created,
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. Like I have to think, I was probably really grown when I had to close the closet door because those clothes hanging in that closet looked a certain way. And I'm like, oh, nope.
Yeah. I had the advantage of going to grad school and doing my own therapy for years and decades, really, because of the nature of my role. But that you spend a lot of your adulthood processing your childhood if you really want to. And so all of that feeds into everything we believe, And so there has to be an openness to shift, to rethink how we've thought.
And it's okay. That's growth.
Yes.
That's growth.
That's the definition of growth.
So talk to me about 10,000 coffees.
Yes. So we're 10,000. That's probably one of our really most proudest partnerships with 10,000 Coffees. We created a mentorship program called Sprout with Spring. in partnership with 10,000 Coffees. So it is a career mentoring and coaching program where we match talent at Spring Health with more senior leaders. And so I've been a mentor a few times. The rest of our C-suite leaders and senior leaders have as well. And you're mentoring employees and people who are earlier in their career. Sometimes the question is, I don't know what I want to do. Sometimes the question is, I know exactly where I want to be in 3, 4, 5, and 10 years. How do I get there? And it's been phenomenal. We've sent hundreds and hundreds now in 2 years of employees and early career employees through this program. And the feedback is just astounding. The concept of spending 6 1-hour sessions with a senior leader and the impact that can happen in terms of exchanging stories and providing guidance in exactly the right moment for somebody who's been there, but also getting a fresh perspective on my situation isn't exactly like your situation. And so seeking to understand what's unique and coaching and advising in that way. Some of our team members have said that it's been career changing and life changing to have this mentorship experience that we wouldn't have had we not partnered with 10,000 Coffees and built this Sprout with Spring program.
I love it because, one of the things that I appreciate just even in my career is having those unofficial programs, right? Being able to have access to a leader that pull my coat strings here and there, or just like, Sacha, I need you to come sit. Let's talk.
Me too. Absolutely.
And it's just so invaluable. And I think for me, it was even more special if it was a woman of color that I was having the opportunity to speak to and learn from. And, throughout my career, even now I'm thinking back, I've had the pleasure of being able to sit with the CEO and just, have conversation, or the chief technology officer and have conversation. And what that was how that helped me be able to position myself for better opportunities, even if it wasn't within that organization. And I think that was some of the most unselfish conversations as well, because it was, how are you doing? Like, how can I support you? And vice versa. Because, especially the chief technology officer, it was just like, okay, I know I only see things from this particular lens. Help me see what I'm not seeing, right?
Exactly.
Help me identify some of these areas that I might be missing. And so being a real thought partner in that space, I think was so invaluable. So I love that you all are doing that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just reinforcing. I think back on, as you were talking, some of my best mentors, and they challenged me and pushed me out of my comfort zone and said things I did not want to hear. Just to be clear, I did not. And then I reflect back and I'm like, that was probably the most, as much as I cried and there was pain in the moment around pushing me and really challenging me. I'm like, wow, that some of those words changed the direction of my career.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even realize what's happening until you reflect back.
Yes.
I'm like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
get it now.
Exactly. You have to be out of the emotion of the moment and be able to look back and kind of get meta and then go there. So you don't realize it in the moment, but it's again, going back to fear, right? Not being afraid to be pushed out of your comfort zone and getting feedback, right? And it goes two ways.
It does. It absolutely does. So we're going to do a little bit of a pivot. Folks know about this pivot. What do you do to take care of yourself? We've been talking about mental health. We've been talking about doing the things that we need to do and being intentional. Like, how do you fill your cup?
Sacha, such a good question. How do I fill my cup? So I have 3 babies. I'll call them babies for a very long time, even though they're 9, 7, and 3. So one actually is still a baby.
Yeah.
And look, it's a juggling act, right? I travel to New York at least once or sometimes twice a month. And filling my cup is about really being present with them, which is very challenging to me. I talk about it in therapy. I try to work on the same strategies that I preach, but it is difficult. But one of my former colleagues once told me there are 3 moments when you're with your kids that you really want to be present. Put your phone down on a daily basis, right? Be completely absorbed and engaged. The 15 minutes when they wake up, 15 minutes when they walk in the door from school, and the 15 minutes before bed. And those are kind of the strategies I use around the moments that matter around being really present. And when I have those moments that are just like last night, my 3-year-old spent 2 hours, doing this foil exercise, and I did it with him with an hour. And I'm like, I had 14 Zoom meetings today.
Right.
And so I thought I needed to be alone and just get some space before I engaged with the kids. But it was so like that filled my cup last night.
Yeah.
And he was just so happy, and he just could have done it for 3 more hours, which is great for a parent, by the way, tip.
Right.
Well, fun. But so the having those moments of presence with my children and my family, I have a very, fulfilling life outside of work. And I think that that's really important when we go back to the idea of whole person.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Karishma, how could folks get in contact with you if they wanted to learn more about what you all are doing at Spring Health, or just they get connected?
Absolutely. Well, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think we'll drop the link here. My email address is karishma@springhealth.com. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have, or any ways that I can answer questions, or we can connect you with Spring Health as a solution. We're always looking to create new partnerships and connections. So welcome the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you so much for just being here and having this conversation, because I think that it's so important that we talk about mental health and wellness, but how we did it today was slightly different than we've done it before,
Right.
because it really is about how do you embody this, and how do you make sure that you have your employees front and center and top of mind as you are creating for them, and with them, and not them being a secondary thought. So I truly appreciate you joining us today.
Of course. Thank you, Sasha, for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us for this week's episode. I hope that you are able to walk away with a few nuggets that you can take back to your organization as you think about how you can better embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into your organization. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, share with others that you know as well. And as always, have a good one.